Welcome. Black Cajun Sports Talk Show has made its way up to Abington, Pennsylvania, home of one of the best high school basketball teams in the area for the last 3 years. This will be the fourth year where they'll be one of the big contenders, and we're here in the home of Mr. and Mrs. Eric and Mrs. Jean Dixon. How you guys doing?
My friends feel it's their appointed duty.
Great. Good. It's good to be here again. I hate to lead people and make it something fake. I've been here. I know these people. These are my people. A lot of these conversations are conversations that we've had in the past. So I'm just opening them up so you guys can get a feel for what I talk about with some of my parents from time to time. So, I'm going to jump right into it. And I want to ask you guys both, why Villanova? The reason I ask that is because we're going to go down the list. Let's say Donta, if I were a betting man, I would think that Donta may leave the city. Dymere Bishop is gone. Isaiah Wong is gone. Seth Lundy is gone. Naeem McLeod, I understand he has a visit at Florida State coming up. I don't know Naeem's thinking. I'm not really privileged. But I suspect he's entertaining out-of-town offers as well. So you guys, among the elite guys, are the only people who hung around these parts. So why?
Well, I think there were a number of reasons why. I mean, first of all, you can't play down the fact that they are the national champions. I mean, it's
two-time.
I've won 2 of the last 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you really take a look at it in totality, it's an excellent opportunity to get a great education and play big-time basketball right here in his own backyard. I mean, that had a lot of play into the decision.
Ms. Dixon.
Yes.
As the process was unfolding, was that a factor for you? Does he go? Does he stay?
Definitely. Eric had the opportunity to travel all over the country. I wanted to make sure he understood what was involved if he was to go far away to the Midwest, something like that. So, through tournaments and things like that, we are travelers. Our family is everywhere. So he had those opportunities. Florida, everywhere. Virginia.
Oklahoma?
Yes, I enjoy traveling.
Okay.
I like the adventures.
She and Eric actually traveled out to Oklahoma State and did an unofficial on our dime, and it was an interesting experience.
A lot of pickup trucks, cowboy boots.
Well, on campus, the Cowboys, but I enjoyed it. Cowboys on campus. We have family in Texas, so I enjoyed the ride from Texas to Oklahoma. It was actually more suburban than I thought it would be. It's not as rural as you think, so that was eye-opening. It was diverse.
Well, the reason I started off with this question is because it's a I don't want to say a pressing issue, but it's an issue. Keeping some of these guys' homes, and it's an issue for the local college coaches, and they're really trying to get a sense, an understanding of what the families are thinking about, and what do they have to do to keep a kid home. Do they just have to win 2 national championships?
I think that the bigger issue, and I think that you and we've talked about this before, is like my wife said, we've traveled all around the country. Eric didn't take any officials, but he took over a dozen unofficial visits.
Not one official visit?
Not one. He is going to take one to Villanova.
Okay.
He's going to take one to Villanova in November. But I think the biggest thing that we had let me start by saying the first big-time program that we were invited to on a visit and, got the royal treatment, driving around in the golf cart and all that sort of thing, was Maryland.
Okay.
And we were absolutely blown away, like, wow.
I've been
this
there
is incredible.
on a visit in the past month.
And you mentioned Dante. And if Dante went to Maryland and saw what we saw, I'm sure
understand.
he was very impressed, because it's very impressive. Mark Turgeon and his staff do a great job of presenting their program, so it was impressive. So at first it was like, wow, look at these facilities, but then as we visited the different schools, it got down to the point by the time we visited Virginia for a second time, I actually told Coach Williford and Coach Bennett, it's not going to come down to facilities. It's going to come down to the relationship with the coaching staff. It's going to come down to system. It's going to come down to, basketball related things. Because when you're talking about going to Virginia or Villanova or Miami or Oklahoma State or Georgetown or Seton Hall, you're going to get a great education from those places. So it really came down to more of a basketball-related thing, and how comfortable Eric was with the proximity to home. Because as you know, a lot of the reasons why he stayed home in Abington, because he was actually recruited. I was approached on his first trip out to Colorado by Finley Prep. They were very impressed, and they wanted to talk to me about him possibly spending some time out there with them. And Eric decided, no, I want to stay home.
Well, let me ask you this, because I remember it very clearly. You and I were talking around the time when you were supposed to visit Virginia, and that nonsense took place. And the guys with the tiki torches and the khakis, and they acted up on that campus or near that campus. And I remember you had to reschedule your visit because you're just like, I'm not going down there right now. Did that kind of stuff factor in your decision regarding Virginia? Did you guys talk about that?
Definitely. That was a factor. Taking that ride down that road, very few street lights. Or what's that last
I
road
think that
going
the
into
conversation went
Charlottesville?
like this. Charlottesville is a beautiful city. And I don't think there was much concern within.
Once you were there.
Once you're there.
campus.
Once you're in Charlottesville, it's a beautiful place. You feel safe. You don't feel any of that tension. And actually, those people who came with the tiki torches and the khaki pants, they weren't from there. So it wasn't surprising to me that you felt comfortable in Charlottesville on the University of Virginia campus. You felt fine there. But our discussion was, what happens if he's driving home and his car breaks down? That road to University of Virginia is kind of scary,
That's real, and I think that more parents need to factor in social, cultural, demographic factors when you're trying to make big decisions, especially parents with the kind of options that you guys were facing. Okay, let's change gears.
I just wanted to just finish on that point about Virginia. One, it was very difficult to tell Tony Bennett no. That was a very difficult situation. Decision to make. But also, it came down to, where do you want to live? Most of the time, or a lot of the time, we don't talk about the NBA and all of that sort of thing around here. We talk about college and getting your education and finishing
your
that
network.
up.
What is your network?
What is your
gonna
network
be?
and stuff going to be?
Representing
And also,
that institution.
and a lot of times when you go away to college, you end up settling wherever you get your degree. So we had the discussion of, well, where do you want to live? Do you want to live in Charlottesville or in the D.C. area, or do you want to live in the Philadelphia area?
The DMV.
The DMV.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, and Eric decided he if it came to that,
He would settle back in this.
he would settle back in this area. So he would want to have I think Villanova's degree will carry weight nationally, but it's going to carry a little more weight here than it probably would, say, in New York or California.
I've had the good fortune, and I throughout this process, I've been in communication with you. So, when you guys would have a visit or something, you would just ask me if I knew people or I knew the area or anything. And one of the things that I've always taken note of, and I'd say more than most parents I encounter, Eric, the father, always inquires about and is curious about the other kids. And you praise the other kids. And I've never said this to you, but I really do take note. You'll say, yo, Naeem, I saw him, he played really well. Or I've heard you say, I think Dante Scott is the best player in the region. Now, what I'm trying to get at is that when I encounter your son and you're not around, that same character, that same trait is within him. What can we say to the parents out there that are watching this to help them raise someone who's balanced and secure enough in himself that he can praise someone without feeling like, I have to knock him down to make, because that's a Philadelphia characteristic.
Well, I think you just said it. You lead by example.
Yeah.
That's a good start because they mimic each other in a lot of ways. I don't know if they would admit it, but we're very fortunate, to have that mentorship, that friendship, to that example.
You've heard your husband say those things to this other kid
Definitely.
all the time.
Yeah.
More than most parents I encounter, Eric. You do.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think that part of it comes from not being. I'll say it this way. I'm a pretty big fan of the game, and I like to see good basketball, whether whoever's playing it. And I didn't really know a lot about high school basketball before my son started playing. So one of the things that I've always just been a fan. Like I played 4 years in the public league, a couple years in the college league, and the Sunny Hill League. And I think that one of the things that I always respected was the fact that I wasn't extremely talented. So when I see a kid like Dante Scott or Damir Bishop or even Lynn Greer III, I recognize the talent. I mean, it's almost like someone who can't sing.
I think everybody recognizes it. I'm talking about what makes you able to say it and acknowledge it. That is the factor that I think if we could have others do that more, I think we'd have a better basketball community.
Our sense of community, to be uplifting, encouraging. I just think that's our background. That's our heart. That is that ABC. We used to be house parents for a better chance. We used to have 11 children when Eric was born. So yes, Radnor. Shout out Radnor ABC.
Yeah, we were actually when we lived in Boston for the first couple of years of our marriage, and then when we moved back to the area, we became parents for a better chance, which gave 11 teenagers from New York, Virginia,
a chance to go
to a better school, and it also increased that school's diversity. And so when you come from that type of background, we're used to encouraging other kids. We understand that yes, our child is important to us, but also all kids are important. And tearing one child down doesn't build my child up.
Right.
I remember I had a discussion with somebody about the whole Dante being better than Eric. I said it doesn't matter. There's 351 D1 schools.
13 scholarships each.
13 scholarships each. So if Dante's better and he gets a scholarship, that still leaves plenty for my son. So what difference does it make? And it really just comes down to, you see people have that same type of discussion on the college or pro level. Who's the best? Bron, MJ. It really comes down to what you like and what you appreciate and what you think is the most important characteristic a basketball player can have. But just because one is eating doesn't mean another can't.
Good.
Everybody.
They can both be, or all five of them can really be good.
Like somebody said, well, Dante's going to the NBA. That's great. That's great for him and his family. That doesn't mean Eric can't. We saw two kids from the Philadelphia region from the same house go back to back in the NBA draft. So that just tells you right there, just because one kid from Philadelphia can make it, doesn't mean it's mutually exclusive to another kid.
Point well taken and well articulated. I want to talk about another trait that really has made your family attractive to me as a person that just observes people going through this process. Loyalty. Now, you mentioned that you had an opportunity to maybe jump ship. And I know that Eric from 9th grade on has been on the national scene. And once you're on the national scene, top 50, top 100, top 150, you're going to get Montverde. You're going to get Oak Hill. You're going to get Findlay Prep, Huntington Prep. They're going to want to inquire. They're going to want to see. Maybe even the schools up in North Jersey going to want to know, hey, you interested? What makes you guys decide that you're going to raise your son with the same kids that he's been with since kindergarten?
Well, we are sitting in the house that we've been in. Our family's been here for over 50 years in the Abington community. So let me just say that. So, this is the spirit of our household. And again, a lot of people don't always realize, even now, if I go to Abington, they're like, well, who is that? Because, of course, I'm Jean Dixon. But, they said, Eric Dixon's mom is from Abington. Who is that? Well, it's my maiden name, and
What's the maiden name? Give it
Murphy. Murphy.
Okay.
But still, we're still not really related. It's a community with a lot of relationships, but it's even more unique that the Murphys. People know who the Murphys are from Abington.
Well, the thing is, in especially in this area, in the Willow Grove area here, there are really some distinct families. Yeah. I mean, you have large families. Like one prominent family here is the Grasleys, who just happens to be Eric's high school coach. They are a huge family here, and they have deep roots here. Right. And that's one of the things I didn't understand about Charles, but I'll talk about that. But I think one of the things that you have to understand is the way Eric, he's been in the Abington School District since he was in kindergarten.
Yes.
Now, I'll be honest with you, Dell, and I've told you this before. I had Eric scheduled for classes at Carroll. Mm-hmm. And he flat out told me, I'm not going.
So he wanted to stay with the same kids he's been with since kindergarten.
Again, we discussed that. We weighed the option. I'm familiar with Radnor, like we said, so we visited. His cousin was there at Carroll, so we weighed out the option. But again, the logistics, you're going to have to get up, 2 hours earlier, Eric, this type of sacrifice. At this time right now, we're 12, 13, 14, making that decision, take the train. We can make it happen. Think about it.
So what about on the AAU side? Again, we are one since he started high school, correct?
Yes.
So why? I mean, I know, again, people come at you guys and they want to know.
The AAU thing was a journey, though, Del. It was a journey. His first organization, the first known organization that he was with, is Team Final.
Okay.
He was with Team Final, I guess, in the 6th grade.
Triple threat.
And then the Team Final thing fell apart because of a number of issues internally to the team. And then we took him to Triple Threat. And Triple Threat, he stayed with Triple Threat. And one of the things that I didn't like was other programs would try to come in and say, Triple Threat's not big enough.
No, yeah.
But Triple Threat was family. Actually, two of the guys who founded Triple Threat, Sean and Carnell Grooms, they got those guys. I called them when I first started to see some potential in my son. I decided, he's a good player out here in the suburbs, but I needed him to have some of this. So I said, let's get him down to the city and see what it looked like. Right. And he went down there and he responded. But he did that as part of Triple Threats 3-on-3 bitty basketball thing. So he started. We had a good relationship, and so when they wanted to start an AAU program, we said, okay, let's go with it. And so I wanted to be loyal to those guys, help them grow their program, and so we stayed with them until they eventually merged with Team Nelson. And with Team Nelson, they brought a lot more talent, which is what we needed. I think Triple Threat had some connections that Team Nelson could benefit from, and Team Nelson had some connections that Triple Threat could benefit from. And both teams had talent that we could bring. The theory was that we could take their best 5 and our best 5 and put them together. We'd have a pretty good team.
Pretty good national competitive team.
We had become a pretty competitive team. But when they merged, there was some disappointment, some misunderstanding as to whether or not we would go to nationals. in his, I think it was his 7th or 8th grade year. I can't really remember now, but there was some confusion as to whether or not he was going to be able to do that, go to nationals. And we had went to nationals in the 6th grade, and that experience really taught Eric that he had to get better, because it's one thing to be good on your block, it's one thing to be good in your city, it's another thing to go and face kids from all over the country and be able to compete. And Eric understood from that first nationals experience at Boot Williams that he needed to get better. So he worked really hard throughout that year to get better. And when Triple Threat decided they weren't going to be able to send us to nationals, we were very disappointed for him and as a family. So I was contacted by a friend of mine, James, and James said, well, we're going to nationals, but we need another big. And he had just happened to be playing with We Are One. And We Are One said, look, we're not going to charge you anything. You just got to pay your own dime to get down there. And so we got there. It was in Memphis, Tennessee. We got there. Eric must have played with that team 4 games before the coach said, look, we can't do, because we had lost a couple games. We were on the verge of being knocked out of the national, contention for one of those big trophies. And so the coach said, look, he the big dog. He eat first. We're going to work everything around him. And I'll tell you one kid I will always have respect for, no matter what happens with him, is Seth Lundy. Yes. Because Seth was the guy on that team. And something that you don't see young teenage kids be able to do, he subjugated his ego.
And they went on a run?
And they went on a run. They won 5 straight, finished with a top 10 finish in the Nationals.
Yeah.
And you've been there ever since?
And no. Because the thing was, he was only supposed to be with We Are One.
I was alone.
As a loan. And we wanted to be true to our word of him only being there on loan. So after we made the national run, we come back and we go back to Triple Threat / Team Nelson or Philly Pride, whatever they were. I can't really remember what they were at that point. But I do know that the talent was merged. But their system, their basketball system, was geared more around the wings than Eric as a post player. And I looked at that and I said, okay, from a purely basketball standpoint, this isn't going to work for us.
But for 15s, 16s, and 17s, it's been all We Are One.
Yeah. So what happened was he went back to the merge, Triple Threat, just like we said we would. He was with them for a month and a half, maybe. And I could just see from a basketball standpoint.
Well, it was. We could see it wasn't going to work.
We could see it wasn't going to work. So he was with them maybe a month and a half, and then for the rest of that time, he was with We Are One.
So what do you say when they come up to you and they say, look, I'm out of New York and I got this team, or I'm out of D.C. and I got this team? What do y'all say to these people?
Yeah, well, it's funny, Dale, because I would go on, I would tell people, they say, well, I don't know how you feel about us approaching you. And I say, look, if Eric doesn't go somewhere that he hasn't been, and nobody comes up to us and tries to recruit him to another program, then he didn't play well.
Well, and again, they had to travel to Delaware when it first started. The coach was involved. The first coach that we dealt with, Kevin, right? Dealing with Kevin, so that was part of the decision. So that took some effort for us to even go to Delaware. So traveling other places with school and everything else. By this time, we have Charles in tow, so that was involved. So Delaware was enough of a distance to be able to get there with the tri-state team.
But in regards to the other teams, the thing would be this. Why would I have Eric leave his team? We Are One was his team, along with Sharif and some of the other guys from the core. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? It was his team. So why would I have him leave his team? and eventually Kev would go and Skip would come in, and it didn't matter.
Did you have to deal with maybe the Nike or Adidas people saying that your circuit was not going to be able to get you where you want to be? So how did they couch that when they came up to you?
Well, what they would say was one of the things that you have to understand that I understand that there's a lot of backbiting and infighting in the AAU thing here in Philly, but everyone. I remember having a conversation recently with Amara Austin, and he even expressed that everyone respects how We Are One runs their organization. So there wasn't going to be any downing of We Are One in order to try to make that happen. But what they would say is, well, if you want him to get invited to Team USA, or if you want him to be, he's got to be on the EYBL. If you want him to be ranked by ESPN, he's got to be on the EYBL.
He's accomplished all those things on the Under Armour circuit.
Okay.
Yes. If you want him to get certain colleges, like a Nike Elite program like Villanova.
Who sponsors Nova? Nike.
Nike. They're Nike Elite program.
Did you feel any pressure to consider Under Armour programs as you were going through this process?
No, in fact, Maryland was an Under Armour program and we didn't even know it.
Okay.
In fact,
there's this perception that, because you play.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, Dal. All of the coaches we have talked to Adidas schools, Nike schools, Under Armour schools. They don't care. What they care about is can you move their program forward?
Right.
Like, that's one of the things that I came to understand is that the AAU programs may push the affiliation thing, and you may have a leg up in the organization. Because I'll give you an example. One example, We Are One played in the Maryland team camp.
Right.
Do they do that if they're not an Under Armour an Under Armour team?
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So that may get you into Under Armour school's team event. But when those when those scouts come out to see you play AAU ball, they're not sitting in the UA section or the Nike section or the Adidas section. They don't care.
They keep trying to tell me